I'm Kyle Malnati, your host of the Calibrate Real Estate Podcast. At Calibrate, we exist to help people create generational wealth through real estate. My personal mission is to encourage, empower, and educate you by sharing best practices from business leaders that are proven winners. Broadcasting from the Mile High City, thank you for tuning in to episode 138 of the Calibrate Real Estate Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Malnati. Our guest expert is a returning expert, Chasen Miles, successful real estate agent and leader in Texas, leader of the Founders Real Estate Group, powered by EXP. Chasen, welcome back to our show.
Kyle, it's good to be back. Thanks for having me.
Man, I love that sign behind you. If you're not watching on YouTube, first of all, Chasen's going to talk a lot about maximizing YouTube in your business. He's got a sign that says hustle right behind it, and he is a hustler. Let me just tell you kind of what he's got going on besides being a top producing real estate agent. He wrote a book called The Real Before the Estate. He is the podcast host of Power Unit Success Cast on Apple Podcasts. He's probably the biggest platform is YouTube and then also Instagram. And he's going to talk to us about getting referrals in your real estate business using those social media platforms, as well as affiliate links and making money that way. Chasen, let's just catch up on episode 9 when you were a part of our first 10 episodes. Now we're at episode 138.
Wow. Yeah.
Pretty crazy stuff. And you had chatted with us at that time about social media strategy, influence, and that when you put yourself out there, you're going to get both fans, but also haters. So what prompted you from going from social media to then writing a book? And I know you've been an author for a while, but let's talk about authoring a book, The Real Before the Estate.
Yeah, sure. My big motivating factor for that, for writing the book was, for one, I knew that everyone wasn't on YouTube, and I just saw through the years how my message had helped certain people, maybe steered them in the right direction. And so it got to a point like, actually, I'm gonna tell you like where it truly came from. So I have a client of mine, and he's been one of my kind of career-long clients. Well, he is hard of hearing, so he doesn't hear at all. And I remember he's such a big supporter of me and my business. We did the whole transaction just through text messaging. And one day he said to me, he was like, I wish that I could have, or I could be able to watch your videos, but none of them have subtitles. None of them have, anything. So like, I know you're big here and you're knowledgeable, but I can't watch any of your videos. And it kind of got me to thinking, like, not only like, dang, this is my client and I want him to be able to know that I have these platforms. But then it got me thinking about all the people out there who may want to hear this message or may need this message, but I'm not, I don't have subtitles in my videos. And then there's the people who just don't watch videos. So I was like, there's a whole audience out there that's missing this. So I need to put it all in one place. I need to put it on paper. I need to just create another resource for those people who may miss me through the videos. So, it was pretty easy to do in a sense of my video. I mean, my book, they're just all stories. They're all of just my knowledge. So it was easy to write, and yeah, so here we have it.
Wow, that is so cool. And what a wonderful motivator. Chasen's showing the book. So let's keep that up there for a second.
Yeah.
If people want to get The Real Before the Estate by Chasen J. Miles, how do they go get that out in bookstores or Amazon, or how do they get that?
Yeah, so you can actually go on Amazon. You can go on Amazon and just type in my name, or you can type in The Real Before the Estate. It'll come up. Or you can just go to therealbeforetheestate.com, and that'll link you to the book.
That's probably the best. Let's go to therealbeforetheestate.com. And Chasen, congratulations on writing that book. I know it's not the first time you've written a book, but you had mentioned to me that this is kind of your first like real book, real platform, and it's just getting great reviews. You also mentioned to me that it's a cautionary tale. So what do you mean by that?
With this book, I'm very open and I share real life experiences that I went through, but then I also share these struggles, the struggles of being a newer real estate agent. I had just moved here I had moved to Texas from Georgia. So trying to launch a real estate business, plus I was only like 24. So I'm in a new place. I have no network of people and I'm young, so nobody's taking me seriously. So it was quite the struggle. But I'm also talking about what it takes to get your real estate business going. So one of two things is going to happen after you finish reading this book. You're either going to come into the business and you're going to hustle hard and you're going to become successful, or this book is going to completely turn you off of the business. So which is the goal of the book? I mean, everybody on YouTube, people know me for being real. So I wanted to put that real information out there. Like this business isn't what I thought it was when I got into it. And I know it's not what a lot of people think it is. And so that's my biggest goal with this. I want you to get a real world perspective of someone working in the real estate business, a brand new agent, and not just a mega agent that you see on TV.
Jason, I'm so proud of you. And I'm also really inspired by you because I have been in the process of mulling over and working on a book for 5 years, and I haven't put it out to the market, and you've done it. It's there. I'm going to support you. I'm actually going to order 10 copies of the book, 5 of which are for my team, and then 5 of which will be for our podcast audience that tunes in. And what we'd like to do is, if you want a copy of this book, all you have to do is email info@calibratere.com. Our podcast producer, Kayla Davis, will capture your mailing address and we'll mail you a copy. Obviously, go buy 10 books or whatever yourself by going to the website. But Jason, I've got this juxtaposition here because I'm a little bit older than you. We were connected by a good friend of mine that you used to work with. And so I feel proud for you. And then I'm also inspired because I'm like, man, I want to write my book now and I want to get it out there and get it into people's hands and really impact the lives of others. And so, man, it's really, really cool. And I think we have to take a second to say that's an amazing accomplishment. All the while leading a team of about 15 people, 12 agents, 3 staff members. I mean, that hustle behind you is real. I mean, that's real, man.
Yeah. It's a lot of hard work, but I enjoy it.
Well, and what are you talking about over on your podcast that's over on Apple Podcasts like we are? We're on Apple, Spotify, YouTube. I know that you're big onto YouTube. So what's Power Unit Success Cast all about?
Right. So I actually have a coaching program called Power Unit Coaching, right? And every week I meet with agents all across the country. I take them through certain steps to help their businesses out in a way. But I saw just over time, and I still continue to see today, just comments on YouTube and in my DMs of people still having struggles in their real estate business. How do I do this? How do I do that? I can't afford a coach. I can't, whatever the case is. So what I decided to do with the Power Unit Success Cast was branch it off from the coaching, but give agents an opportunity to come on to this podcast and talk about their struggles, or maybe get clarity in an area where they don't feel like they're getting any help. And my hopes with that was that somebody else out there is listening to it and it solves their problem as well. So each week, I have an agent come on, and they've been all over the country. So all different types of business, all different levels, top producing agents down to the brand new agent. And we just sit there, and it's almost like a 15-minute coaching session that we put out there on the podcast for everyone to hear and be able to apply to their businesses.
Oh, that sounds great. And I think that operating a team, I mean, your team is as large, or as a matter of fact, a couple of people larger than my brokerage company. So I would imagine you've seen it, you've been there, you've done that, you've seen all the problems. And that's the thing I like about your message. If you're not following Chase and Miles on Instagram or on YouTube as a subscriber, the thing that I like about Chasen is that you do all these vignettes basically of kind of debunking what problems we have out there in the real estate business. And you're very open about I gotta remember one that I can think of real specifically of where you actually went line by line, like what someone's paying in a commission, which most real estate agents would cringe and be like, why are you saying that, man? Like, don't be talking about like how we allocate our commissions. But I think that that's so transparent. It's so authentic, and it really resonates clearly. And that's why people follow you, and because they look at you as a trusted thought leader. What are some of the most popular YouTube videos that you've had? Because I would imagine that those subjects will really resonate with our Calibrate Nation here, our podcast audience that is top performing real estate agents. What are some of the most popular YouTube videos that you've found that people download over and over again?
Sure. One of my most popular ones is how much money I made in my first year. So I literally was talking about the dollar amount that I took home after a whole year of trying to be a real estate agent. So that's one of my most popular videos. Another one is talking about quitting real estate, where I'm talking about what was going on to almost make me leave this business, and just kind of where my mentality was and what shift I had to take to continue to keep pushing forward. So that's a super popular one. Every time, or the few times that I've switched brokerages, I've talked about why I left a certain brokerage and why I joined one. So all of those videos. So when I made my first brokerage move, I was at Keller Williams Realty, and I put up a video why I left Keller Williams Realty. And so I was just, talking about my personal reasons, what was going on and what I was looking for and where I found it, things like that. So, those just kind of real world scenarios and situations that we all kind of go through. I'm just sharing my, not so much advice, but what my experience was.
And that's probably real valuable for people, because I would imagine, I've left 3 brokerage firms in my career. As the owner of my own, I don't think I'll be going anywhere else at this point. But that's one of those things that I'm not the only person. We got 2 people right here that have left brokerage companies, and that's hard. There's relational hardship, and there's decisions that are made. And I've got people that leave my own firm, and I have feelings about that as the broker owner. It's really hard to do that. And so it's a very vulnerable situation, I'm sure, to share, this is what I'm feeling, and you want to do it in a dignified way, because the last thing you want is to feel like you're burning a bridge as you're leaving somewhere, but also to explain what's going on. And you've mentioned to me now that you're doing more documentation of what you're doing. You had started off with YouTube, really explaining different things, talking about different problems, and now you've got a camera crew kind of following you through a day in the life, if you will. And so what has that exposed, and what has that shown differently from your previous video series?
What I've been told, and what even I can see that it's exposed, is, for one, it's exposed me on the actual business side and the actual personal side. So, for example, me putting up a video talking about how much money I made, like, that's just showing the facts. It's showing commission checks, and I'm just talking about that. But actually, someone coming in or watching one of my vlog videos, seeing my day-to-day in the business, how I'm interacting with my team members, how I'm showing properties, what decisions I'm making, and more so high-level decisions. So really being able to see me in a day in the life of what I've been talking about for 3, 4, 5 years. And it's so interesting, because literally from my YouTube channel, you can go back and see me as a brand new starter newbie agent and trying to be on camera, super scared and shy, all the way up to today, where you literally see me running a whole company. So it's for someone who wants to binge watch just all of my videos, you will truly see a 5-year journey, a 7-year journey of a real estate agent, and taking through those stages where you start out as a new agent, and then you may join a team or you may not, and then you switch brokerages. Now you start as a little small team, and then you become a broker. Like, it takes you through all of that. So yeah, the documenting is very important, though. I felt like it was needed, especially with real estate, because at the end of the day, like, how many more things are we going to talk about? Like, the business hasn't changed significantly. Yeah, we can talk about what's going on in the news and with social media and stuff like that, but the core business values are the same this year as they were 10 years ago. You know, we still have to hit these phones. We still have to do whatever. But the way that people run businesses now, when you're showing a culture, you're showing people being involved, you're showing like how to just maintain your sanity. You know, that's the stuff that we don't really see a lot.
Yeah, it's pretty cool to just go through that whole evolution, to have a video library, even for yourself or your family, that's like, what's Jason up to? And that you can see the whole thing over the course of more than 5 years. But then also to be able to encourage other agents at that little step in their journey, and what's the next step, and how you felt about that. And I think that's really cool. I think it's very inspiring that you do that. And I just have to imagine, and I've got to look back at my own journey and realize it doesn't happen without support. And
Right.
I think that what occurs is when you're the front man or the front lady, depending on who's listening, you have to have a supporting cast that's around you. And you've got 3 people that support your team in addition to all the agents. So let's talk about the office manager, the marketing director, the sales director, how you came upon those roles within the team. You know, kind of the tenure of different people. You don't have to mention names necessarily, but just, you know, what they do, how they support you, so that you can do all of these other things that really educate people about the real estate industry.
Sure. So my office manager, he actually started out as an agent here on my team, and he was doing very well. But he was one of those agents that, if there wasn't anything going on, he wasn't necessarily in the right headspace, you know. And he'll openly talk about this. He needed to be involved in just all things, just to stay motivated and keep going. So he became more so of my assistant. I guess you could say he was my first buyer's agent. So he was handling all of my deals personally. And then as the team started growing, I was going through different office managers, and just nothing was working out. I wasn't finding the right one. And it just got to a point, it was at the end of last year, and I hit him up and I was like, hey, would you be interested in filling in for this position for just a little while until I find somebody? And of course, he was 100% willing. Here we are, almost a whole year later. He's still in that position, but he 100% enjoys it. His role is supporting the office, supporting the agent. He makes sure everything is buttoned up. People get what they need. He coordinates schedules, books trainings, supplies the office with all the necessary materials. He onboards agents. He does a lot. He definitely does a lot. He has one of those attitudes that I recommend that every office manager has. You know, those people who, no matter what's going on in their personal life, they're always going to smile at you. They're always going to be happy. They're always willing to help. He is that guy. And I mean, I couldn't think of anyone better for that position. Yeah, so that's the office manager. Marketing, his marketing manager, marketing coordinator, he does all of the marketing for the team. So anything that you see coming out on Instagram, Facebook, even down to property flyers, um, he even plans events, like everything that we're doing, our monthly gifting program, that all comes from the marketing department. But then he also supports agents in a sense of whenever they need something, if they want a specific graphic made or a flyer made, he does all that as well. He came in the door, so I've had him in this role for probably 5 months now, and the time that he's been here, he's completely redone all of our collateral. So a listing presentation, buyer's presentation, we have literally a pamphlet and a book for everything now. It looks so good, so buttoned up. And he's really into the role. I told him in the interview, you know, I don't want someone in the marketing department where I have to go and tell them, do this, then do this, then do this, and here's how to do it. Even though I feel like I'm kind of an expert marketer, I don't want to work in that capacity anymore. So I appreciate his mind being very creative. I basically, Kyle, I just gave him our brand guidelines book, you know, in like his like first week, I said, these are our colors, these are our fonts, don't deviate from it. Here's my kind of like vision for how I expect things to look. And he's been running with that ever since. He's
Oh,
really
that's
good.
awesome. I mean, to be able to say, look, I want you to be supported, but I want you to also think for yourself and be autonomous. That is something that I need to remind myself to have that discussion, because you allow someone to flourish in that role. And that's really cool. The sales director is someone that's a licensed real estate agent on your team and really handles a lot of the other agents, right?
Yes. So my sales director, that's a very important role, and it had to be for the right person. So I'm so glad that I got the right person. This person has been in the real estate industry for probably longer than I have. And they've worked in mortgages, they've worked in title, and they've worked in home warranty as their, kind of marketing reps. So their job was to go out there and get new business for these companies, get new business for the lenders, get new business for title, whatever it is. So I really appreciated that about him, that he was well-rounded in those areas, and just all about relationship building, all about generating new business, sales, and everything. And so placing him in a leadership role was a little bit different, because sometimes we're so used to managing just ourselves and our business, and then when you're supporting other people, you may have to change up the way that you say something, or you may have to make everybody feel comfortable, and you don't want to offend anybody else. But his duties, he leads the sales huddles every day. We all practice scripts, role playing. He's in charge of all of the numbers. So I'm able just to have high level meetings with him, where we're just discussing goals and budgets from a high level, and then he trickles that down to the agents by breaking up the goal numbers and staying on top of things and making sure we're hitting goals. He's also the one that interviews agents agents who are interested in coming onto the team. He's the one that interviews those. And so just kind of all things sales, whether it's from a training, motivation, new sales agents, tracking, reporting, he takes care of all of that.
Jason, do you ever step back and say, man, I've got a lot of responsibility? And does that ever stress you out? I know that starting off and really documenting your journey, it didn't take just one day, but how do you feel about, because I feel it too. I've got 2 full-time staff members, 1 part-timer. I've got, at any time around a dozen agents that work in my own company, and it's a lot. So how does that feel for you to be the leader? And do you feel like everybody can do that?
I feel like people can follow a plan. They can maybe get to a certain point, but what I've seen happen over and over again is, people will build up a team and then it'll all come crashing down. One thing, like one of the most important qualities of my real estate team that I'm always going to make sure is maintained is the culture here. Because with the culture, that's what's keeping people here. That's what's keeping people motivated. That's what's letting us all work together and be happy about it. And it stems down from the top. Like it's a huge responsibility on my behalf to make sure that culture is maintained. I know for me, where I am at my level, I really rely on my leadership team. So my managers and directors, because the agents interact with them a lot more than they do with me now. And so I have to make sure that these people are top notch, not only at their job, but they also know what my values are, where my stances are, all that kind of stuff, and know how important it is to make sure that doesn't get compromised. Which is what I truly like about my team specifically, is because everyone who works here already kind of had that sense of Chasten. a little bit. They've probably watched the video, they've probably read something, or they already have had a sense of who Chasten is. And so nobody came in the door trying to completely change anything up, or be a bad seed or anything. So just maintaining that culture takes a lot of stress off of me. Being able to step back a little bit, which was kind of difficult at first, but being able to step back and really putting some of my responsibility on my leadership team, and they appreciate it because they want to feel like they're making a big difference, has truly helped with some of those like sleepless nights a bit, because it was difficult, but I know that I have the right people who we're all following the same goal. We all know what the future is hoping to look like, and that's what we're working toward all together.
Jason, I love that you said that it was hard to take that step back, because top producers are all control freaks.
Yeah.
I mean, we are. And what happens is you're hustling, you're doing everything on your own, and it works, it's successful. And then all of a sudden you're like, I got too much work to do here, I need someone to help me. But then you're used to being the doer. And that's a tough transition. I've seen that for a lot of people where they never make that transition. They're just like, no, I'm just going to continue doing. But I think on the other side of it, what I've seen and what you have seen also is that, yes, you may not know every single detail, but if you can set, here's our cultural values, here's what we believe in, here's how we like to do business from a system standpoint, and then let them run with it and be culture ambassadors themselves, constantly looking to you to say, hey, is this all right? But then you give them the dignity of performing those tasks that you were doing all on your own. And it's a beautiful thing to see. It is.
Yeah, it is. It is. I mean, and just knowing how important that communication is, even with leadership, Kyle, like my Mondays are literally filled with meetings with just my leaders here. So it starts out individually with all the different people, and then we have little smaller group meetings on how we can support each other. And so at the top of the week, we pretty much have our game plan for the whole week. So everybody now has what they need to go out there and execute it. And then I don't really revisit it until the next week, and everybody has to bring in their reports and updates and everything. But again, that's what allows them to do their job really good and do it without me like just watching from their shoulders. But also make sure that what they're doing is in line with where we're trying to go. I do agree with it. And if anybody has a problem with it, I already know about it, and I'm going to back it up because it's coming from up top. So yeah, just really keeping that communication tight between us definitely helps.
All right, Jason, I've got 2 questions that I ask all guests at the very end of our show. We're not quite there yet.
Okay.
My perception, though, of your brand, and I would think that anybody that has followed you for a period of time knows that you're known for being authentic, and we'll just use the word real, because you put that in your book intentionally, the real before the estate. So let's just get real for a second. I'm a mid-30s, getting close to next week, late 30s, white male. This has been a time this year for sure with the death of George Floyd. And I've talked about this on other podcast episodes, where this is a time where people that have a situation like maybe I do are all of a sudden seeing things that we didn't maybe pay attention to. And it's issues that have existed in America for 200 years. But Black Lives Matter is a very important discussion to have. And I realize you're not communicating for the entire thought process, but how does someone maybe in my situation where I grew up middle class, white, male, that may not understand what goes on for anyone that feels like they're a minority, what is this discussion like in 2020 for you? And what are some things that I can do to really help carry that message in a dignified way? And just what thoughts do you have about what's really going on in America right now?
Sure. Well, let me start with from the discussion standpoint. I'm at a place now, and I've had this discussion with people here and there and in large group settings. The discussion doesn't have to be an uncomfortable one. Um, and I think the more that we can be open about discussing these things, the more progress we can make. Because there are so many scenarios, and I've even experienced them, where something can just sound so just out there, and someone could be telling you about an experience, and you just don't see that happening to them. Like, you may hear about it happening to other people, or you may not associate a certain action towards the person who you may be buddies with, or they could be in your family. But these are real life experiences, and unfortunately sometimes we don't talk about them a lot, except when things blow up. But then more oftentimes, white males or other counterparts don't bring it up at all. So what has happened is the doors are open now. It's one of those things where once you know, you can't not know. What takes place from that, though, is where I feel like people's true colors are showing. Because we have the All Lives Matter movement, we have the Black Lives Matter, we have LGBTQ, like everything's coming to the forefront now, and it can oftentimes seem like, okay, yeah, Black Lives Matter was going on, but now we need to pay attention to this, or now we need to take our attention off of here. And, I get everybody's position because I listen very well. But sometimes when things like that are done, it can make people feel like you're not taking their cause as being very important. Couple years ago, I had a conversation with one of the people who I was in business with. I'm not gonna name any names, but they were asking me why I don't sell in a certain area. And they were a white male. They were asking me why I don't sell in a certain area. So the conversation started with me saying, "Oh, well, maybe I just don't know enough." And they told me why I knew enough. "Oh, well, maybe they don't like my personality." And they told me why my personality is great. And then I was like, well, maybe it's because I'm Black. And I mean, because that's honestly what I thought in my head, and it's a known thing. But when I said that, they completely went off the ringer with me. They blew up. That's so ridiculous. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. I can't believe you would say something like that. And oh my gosh, like that just says a lot about your intelligence and this and that. When in real life, I've held an open house in that neighborhood and literally had people walk in the door saying, "Oh, you're not who we expected," and turning right around and leaving, like not even looking at the house. And so for that to take place, like I knew where they were coming from, and they probably weren't in a position to where they've experienced some of the things that I've experienced as a Black male, so they couldn't speak to that. But the wrong move that happened was them completely putting out everything that I said as ridiculous and as stupid. And what's happening today is there are a lot of people that are doing that because they don't necessarily understand, or they're not willing to associate something bad or that type of mentality being their Black friend or their Black family member or their Black associate, because you don't fit the mold or what we think that a person for something like that happening to would look like or talk like or act like. So, it needs to be an open discussion. It needs to be a dialogue, and it has to start with conversation, not necessarily a stance, but conversation. We need to open up these doors and really be vulnerable and be open about what's happening, what's happened in our lives, our personal experiences.
I'm so appreciative of you sharing, especially the open house story, and then also just the discussion of a coworker that their response was, I'm hearing that it didn't make sense to them. and they were almost trying to convince you that it didn't exist or that it was a perception of yours, when you're like, no, this is reality for me. And I think that is the subject, and I don't know enough about it to communicate it extremely eloquently, but the whole concept of white privilege is from what I have heard in other discussions, the idea that I can turn off, not me personally, but someone that's white can turn off the channel of Black Lives Matter because I walk through the world without being Black. And that's something that someone in a different situation can never turn off. And that conversation of, we may be speaking about it more right now, but it's something that's always existed. And it's something always that it sounds like you have dealt with and others have dealt with. And I feel saddened for not having that reality. And I am appreciative for it now. And I believe that some others in my own situation, and this, I for sure felt this way, and I'll liken it to the Me Too discussion a few years ago, where I was feeling really uncomfortable because I was like, I don't understand it. I've never walked a mile in a female's shoes where she may not feel comfortable in certain situations. And as a leader of an organization, I was like, I have females working with me. I need to be thinking about these things. And even though I don't have to think about them myself, and I would walk into a real estate situation in an apartment building. I sell a lot of apartment buildings where I wouldn't be maybe as scared all the time or feeling things or thinking about things. And so it's a very interesting time. And I'm glad that you've shared your perspective. And I think that for folks that are maybe confused or maybe feeling like, why can't we talk about how everyone matters? It's important to share that this is a discussion about how there's been injustice and it needs to be brought to the forefront. And it's not time for me to be on the stage as a single, as a white male, a married white male, but as a singular person. This is a discussion about how injustice has existed for a long time.
Yeah, absolutely. And by both of us being in real estate, really understanding how real estate was a major driver in a lot of things, in quote unquote white privilege, or in certain socioeconomic lanes. I did this experiment with the Dallas Mavericks here. They held an event, and it was called Courageous Conversations. But basically on that experiment, they had probably around like 40 of us line up, and they would ask questions, step forward if you grew up in a house with two parents, step forward if you received a scholarship for your college, step forward if, you have a rainy day fund and this and that. And Kyle, it was so interesting because at the end of it, you saw most of the Black people, if not all the Black people, significantly further behind than a lot of the white people. And they basically said, this is a visual of white privilege. It's not something that you signed up for. It's not something that, you need to feel bad about. It's the position that you've been given. And it stems back further, so many generations. And we can even trace it back to real estate when they were doing things like redlining and drawing the lines here in the city, and certain classes were moving in certain parts of the city, and then certain benefits and the loan officers lending out. Like, all this goes back. But what that did was, that's what created these different levels and classes and privileges, so it's like, okay, I'm not bashing you, saying that you're just privileged and you're a bad person because you have this privilege, because I understand how this came about, and it was a very good visual to see, and to be able to wrap your head around, all right, this is what they mean, or like, this is how I can see white privilege as, a thing.
One last thought on the discussion before we end our show would be, what can someone like me do But then also, what do you do or think about as it relates to diversity within the real estate business? What are some things that we can do to promote leadership and not have that? I love that story, even though I don't love what it's showing that the Dallas Mavericks did, where it shows like, look how much farther behind this situation is. And so what can someone that's in a leadership position do, regardless of whether it's me or you or any, what can we do to shine a light on diversity training and also promotion and things of that sort in our business?
Yeah, I'm not an expert on this, but I'll tell you just some of the things that we did here. When everything started going about, I was at a place where I wasn't necessarily prepared to talk about it. Like, I knew that I was going to have to talk about it to everybody, but what I was seeing as a leader, just looking out, I was starting to notice people were starting to get uncomfortable here in the office. I mean, we have a very diverse team of people, and it was sort of becoming like oh, I don't know if I can say this, or I don't know if I can, say that, or I got to be extra nice. And everyone was starting to play a role. So what I did was I just gathered everybody together. I said, look, obviously this is happening. This is happening. Like, there's no need for us to pretend like it's not, or for it to not be mentioned, so I just brought it to the forefront. What that did immediately, it made them feel a little bit more comfortable talking about it, because I said, hey, let's discuss anything that you just may have on your heart, or that you just want to say, like, right now. Yeah, we know we're all nice people. We're all this family, but I wanted to open up that discussion immediately. Then from there, what we decided to do was we decided to become involved together, through our marketing, and through any types of projects that we were going to work on surrounding this. So as we started to put things out on social media about Black Lives Matter, as we started to cater one of our home buying seminars to more of this, I wanted everybody to feel like they were comfortable being involved in it. And the only way that can happen is to create a project that we could all be involved in. Then what we did there, we had someone come in and really teach about the history of injustice when it came to real estate here in America, how it all came about, how did the Black part of town come about, how did the rich part come about. Like, I felt like it was important for everybody to know, like, hey, this isn't your fault. This isn't my fault. This is stemming from, long ago. But what that ended up doing was it showed that we're in a position to where we can make real change and we can make things happen. And it wasn't me as a leader saying, this is what we have to do. No, it's more of a group discussion. Like, what do you think we should do? What do you think we should do? And collaborating, giving everyone that open voice. It wasn't you can't talk about this because you're not Black. It was like, okay, we all know the facts. We all see what's happening right outside our doors. So it's none of that, but what are we going to do as a group? And then lastly, just recently, we did have an HR leader come in and talk about all aspects of HR. It wasn't just directly with race or anything, but we talked about race, we talked about age, we talked about male and female, we talked about just making everyone feel comfortable, including people in conversation, not just asking them to sit at the table, but actually including people. So this, as a leader, the only advice that I can give, or that I would feel comfortable giving, is make it a group effort. It doesn't need to all fall on your back, because everybody's gonna feel differently about it. But if we can open up that dialogue and really move forward as a group, that to me just really helps everything.
Jason, it's what a leader does. You stand out in front, you address the things that people are thinking about, and then you create an organization of, here's how we're going to handle it. And it's not just you. You're saying, here's how we're going to collaborate. I think that's a beautiful way. And I appreciate you spending some time chatting with me about it, because I have to admit, I don't have a lot of Black friends. And I wish that I had more community. And that's something that I aspire to have more on the front of my mind that really it's a discussion about equality. It's a discussion about social justice and civil rights. And I'm just very appreciative that you were willing to share your thoughts on it. I know you don't speak for everyone. I know you don't speak for our entire nation, but having your perspective is really valuable.
Yep, absolutely.
Last two questions. All right. And this is fun stuff. You answered this question once before, but that was 3 years ago in episode 9. And thanks so much for coming back in episode 138. So Chase and J Miles, the Dear Younger Me question. It comes from a song by the band Mercy Me. I've dubbed it, this isn't in the song, but I've dubbed it as the advice you wish you knew when you were 22. You wrote a whole book that's called The Real Before the Estate. So it's, here's what you need to know before you get into the industry. And so I think you're an expert. You probably have 100 things you could share, but if you had to distill it down to now that you are where you are within the industry, or just as a businessman, or just kind of your thought process, what's the advice you wish you knew when you were 22, Jason?
When I was 22, my advice, or what I wish I would have known, was how to value people more. Because when I was at that age, it was just all about me and what I was trying to do and how I was going to do it. I didn't care what anybody said. I thought that I was the smartest guy in the room all the time. And I wasn't listening to people. I wasn't taking care of people. I wasn't relying on people. I just had way too much pride, when now, I mean, we need people. Like I couldn't imagine doing everything that I do now by myself, because it just wouldn't happen. And so even from a client standpoint, treating them like actual people instead of just a transaction, and family and friends and relationships. So yeah, that was a big lesson for me. And I try to be a good boss to everybody. I think I did, but yeah, back in the day, no, it was my way and my way only.
Yeah, you're not the only one, for sure, that has felt that way in their early 20s. And I think that's great advice. The last question is a newer question, one I didn't ask you. It comes from an episode right before your first episode. So your episode 9, episode 5 was a gentleman that's my career coach named Chris Oakley. Chris tragically died last year in a hunting accident. And his answer to that Dear Younger Me question has really born this new question, which is a question about legacy. And he was in this coaching group, this mentoring group, that had all of the people in the group in their 20s read a book called The Principle of the Path by Andy Stanley. There's an exercise in that book where Andy Stanley, the author, says to the reader, you should write your own obituary. And what that did for Chris is it really drove home the idea of, here's what I want to be known for. Here's what I want to accomplish. Here's what I want someone else to communicate about my life. And ironically, 10 years or so later, passed away before the age of 40, tragically. And he was living on mission because of that exercise. So if you were to have someone write an obituary or deliver a eulogy, hopefully it's decades from now, what would you hope that they would say about you, Jason?
There's a lot of things that they can say about me, even when we're talking about accomplishments and me being a nice person and this and that. I mean, I have a resume and a media resume and all kinds of, they can go on and on, like all that is fine. But what I would want someone to be able to say, literally in their first line or their last line, whatever, I want them to be able to say, if it wasn't for Chasten, I wouldn't be whatever. I want someone to be able to say that I had such a profound impact on their life, to have done whatever it is, but just that big of a thing to where it was only me that caused them to be in that better position, or to be living life the way that they are now. And so yeah, I don't know what that looks like, because it's going to be different for everybody. But in my legacy, I want to basically have created such a huge, significant change for the good for someone's life that they can give me all that credit, like right then and there.
That's beautiful, my friend, because there are so many things that I can think about that I am doing now or I've accomplished. And I think back to, I wouldn't have done that without this person, and you fill in that blank. And what a cool exercise, because I agree that, I mean, that is such a lasting legacy. If you can be a part of someone's journey going from here to there. And I know that the book, The Real Before the Estate, and I'm on the website right now, What I Wish I Knew Before I Started Real Estate by Chase and J. Miles, man, that's so cool. And you're blessing people, you're influencing, and you're a thought leader, and you're generous with your thoughts. And Jason, thank you so much.
Thank you.
If they want to get that book, if you go to therealbeforetheestate.com, I'm going to go there now. Like I said, I'm buying 10 of these. I'm going to give 5 out to my team, and then I'm going to give 5 out to podcast audience out there. Just send an email to info@calibratere.com. And Jason J. Miles, episode 9 now to episode 138. You are the best. Thank you so much.
I appreciate you. Thank you, Kyle.
All right. And it's a shameless plug, but we're going to say it. Please rate this episode if you love it. 5-star review on Apple Podcasts is our biggest focus. We're right around 40, and I know we can break through and get to 50 podcast 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts. Jason J. Miles, thank you so much. As I love to say, we will see you around the neighborhood.